will only agree to a shared missile shield with the U.S. and will not accept the implementation of any new missile project by Washington. That's according to Nikolai Makarov, Russia's chief of general staff. For more now, we can cross live to our correspondent Katerina Rachova, who is in Moscow. Hello to you, Katerina. Now, do we have any more details of the statement made by Russia's top military boss?
Well, the statement, Marina, was made in Zurich, where Russia's top military chief is now on an official visit with Russian President Dmitry Medvedev. In his announcement, he said that Russia opposed any plans by Washington to deploy an anti-missile shield in the Caucasus region, something which Barack Obama was talking about last week. And also, Nikolai Markin said that Russia has not abandoned its plans to deploy an Iskander missile system in its northernmost region of Kaliningrad, something which Russia had wanted to do in response of the U.S. plans to deploy its missile shield in close, just miles away from the Russian border in Poland and the Czech Republic. Well, today's announcement certainly has to do with last week's announcement by President Barack Obama that it was shelving plans to deploy the shield in Eastern Europe. But with today's announcement, Markin, Russia's top military chief, also stressed that there will be no quid pro quo approach for the U.S. And even despite it abandoned its plans to deploy a missile shield in Eastern Europe, there are still major questions still remain on what the new system will be all about and what role Russia will play in this defense system. For several years, Russia has appealed to work jointly to counter possible missile attacks, and Russia proposed alternative sites for the missile shield, sites in the Russian Caucasus region and also in Azerbaijan, but then President George W. Bush declined those plans out of hand, those offers. It has to be seen what the talks between Russian President Dmitry Medvedev and the U.S. President Barack Obama will lead to. They will shortly meet in several days in New York. And certainly that both the announcements of Barack Obama made last week and the following announcement by Russian President, who warmly welcomed the step to abandon the plans to deploy a missile shield in Eastern Europe, will play a role in those talks. So some expect a major breakthrough in talks between the two countries, and actually we might see a whole new era of relations between the two countries.
Well, Katerina, as you just mentioned, the two countries are holding talks, and also during their discussions, there will be talks to work out a new strategic arms reduction agreement. What more can you tell us about that? And specifically, do Washington and Moscow see eye to eye on this one?
Yes, it's not the only talks on the table right now between Moscow and Washington. Also in Switzerland, these hours, another major meeting between the U.S. and Russia is taking place. The talks in Geneva on the new strategic arms reduction treaty, better known as START. We know that this treaty expires in December this year, and Russia has repeatedly said that it closely links signing of the new agreement of the START agreement to the current talks with the U.S. on the anti-missile defense in Europe. So we'll see whether there'll be a breakthrough in those relations. Under the planned START II agreement, the U.S. and Russia might reduce the number of its warheads to 1,600, and the reduction will be made within 7 years. START is the most complex and the largest arms control treaty in history. When it was finally implemented in 2001, 80% of all strategic nuclear arms were reduced. 80% of all arms which existed at that time.
All right, Katerina, of course, we'll be hearing more on what's happening in Geneva later. But for the moment, thanks very much indeed for bringing us this up.